All right, guys, today we're going to build some arrows. Oklahoma Total Archery Challenge is weekend after next. Um, so I'm getting ready for that. I'm trying to build some really light arrows. What I'm going with this year is this Victory Rip XV. This is a 300 spine. I've got them cut to, they're 28 inches carbon to carbon. I'm a 29-inch draw length. This is the gamer edition, so it's not the top of the line, the 0.001 tolerance, straightness tolerance. Only a little bit cheaper just because it's TAC, and you're probably going to break some arrows, lose some arrows, and things like that. So I've already built a lot of these because I just got a little impatient, I guess. But I'm going to build one for you today and just kind of show you how I go about it and why I choose the components that I've chosen. And then we'll get a weight on it at the end of it, and I'll kind of give you a rundown of what I'm using, why I'm using it. Like I said, this is the Rip XV. That's the first component. I put that out of the way a little bit. I like to do a little bit different for my attack arrows as opposed to what I shoot for hunting arrows. I like a little bit heavier hunting arrow, not super heavy, but I mean heavier than this. You'll see how light this one is here in a minute. But I think last year for my hunting arrows, I think I was around 480 grains or something like that, 470 maybe. And I may go a little bit lighter than that this year. But I usually run a 4-fletch on my hunting arrows, primarily because I feel like it gives a little bit better steering with a fixed blade broadhead. I use mechanical and fixed blade depending on the situation. But with fixed blade broadheads, I feel like that 4-fletch and a little bit bigger vanes gives a little bit better steering, especially a little bit longer range. And so I just kind of keep that consistent throughout my hunting arrows, whether they're fixed blade or mechanicals. On these, though, I'm going to go with a 3-fletch, and I'm using a quite a bit smaller vane. I usually use the AAE hybrid 26s, I think, is what's on my hunting arrows. These are the hybrid 2.0. I'll show you here in just a second. One thing I like to do when I'm putting these wraps on, these are the Hush. I get them from the Get Hushin'. I think that's the name of the website, gethushin.com. They're just some kind of cool looking honeycomb patterned white wraps that I like to use. They're not too long. I like a 4-inch wrap. Too long, you know, and it's very minimal. I get it, but it adds a little bit of extra weight that's not necessary. And I think the 4-inch just looks a little bit better anyway. So I use a 4-inch wrap. I think it's super important to have one of these mats when you're putting wraps on here. And once I get the wrap on there, I kind of hang the knock off the edge of this mat and then roll it really good, make sure there's no bubbles in it or anything like that. Next thing, we're going to put it up in this Bitzenberger. I use a Bitzenberger with I'm using a left helical. I'm not exactly sure the degree of helical that I'm putting on it. It's not a whole lot. So basically, where I'm at on that with these TAC arrows is I'm shooting at long range, 100 plus yards in a lot of cases. So I don't really want a bunch of drag, and I feel like a lot of helical, and I've kind of heard that a lot of helical creates a lot of drag. So I think a lot of helical is really good for hunting situations, depending on what your hunting situation is. If it's a shorter yardage, because it can really get that arrow spinning good and get it and steer it really well, especially if you're using fixed blade broadheads. But on using a field point, I don't think that the really extreme helical is quite as important. I'm also doing just 3 vanes to save a little bit of weight on the back end, and decrease the drag. I'm looking for as much speed as I can get out of these. Speed and accuracy is what I want with these arrows, because I'm trying to hit those really long range shots really accurately. So what I'm using here is AAE Hybrid 2.0. I got these white ones. I think the white on white looks pretty cool. As you can see, they're really small. They're very, very small. Gonna make a whole lot less drag, and I don't think a big vane is necessary for using field points. Like I said, I'm using a left helical. The reason for that is because when I clocked my arrows, they clock left. I know there's a lot of people that do right helical regardless of which way it clocks, because the left helical will tend to, depending on what field points you're using, it will tend to loosen up your field points when they hit the target if you've got that arrow spinning left. The issue that I have with that is if that arrow is at short range, it's not that big of a deal. At long range, as to me, what I've noticed is that if you use a right helical at pretty long range, eventually that arrow is going to try to correct itself. If the arrow naturally is rotating left out of the bow, and you put a right helical on it, eventually it's going to correct itself and it's going to start to parachute, and it's going to affect, for one, the angle that your arrow's hitting that animal if you're hunting with it, which it can be really important. But also, it's going to take that parachuting takes momentum off of it. You're losing some speed, and you're going to lose accuracy because of it, I think. I'm not necessarily a real expert at all this stuff. I've learned a lot over the years, and that's kind of what I've noticed. I feel like I'm more accurate using a left helical when my arrows are clocking left. Putting a left helical on it, I think, only makes sense. If they're already wanting to spin that way, why not make them want more to spin that way? So anyway, generally, I try to get my vanes on to where they're about an inch away from the end of the carbon. And I think that's kind of the general rule of thumb for most people. So anyway, I didn't go over putting the insert in. I'd already put all the inserts in these. I get these stainless steel Victory inserts for my arrows. For one, because they're super strong. My arrows withstand a lot more damage. Sometimes at long range, some of these smaller targets and stuff, and for me, it's some of the bigger targets, because we all have our faults. You miss, and you're going to hit a tree. You're going to hit maybe a rock that's sitting on the ground in the background behind the target. And I've seen multiple times where my arrows, since I've been using this stainless steel half outs, have withstood those impacts, and they didn't do that with the aluminum. So that's one reason I use the aluminum or the stainless steel half outs that Victory makes for the RIP series arrows. Another reason is that the ones that come with them the aluminum ones that come with them are I think they're 30 grains or something, and these are 50. So it gives you a little bit more in your FOC, which I'm not a big FOC guy, but it's something, you get a little bit extra. Actually, I think they're 60 grains. They might be 60. I can't remember. But anyway, I spent a little bit of extra money to put them on there, but I think it makes the arrow a lot stronger, a lot more durable, and adds a little bit of weight onto the front, which I'm not as concerned about for 3D stuff. The primary reason I'm using them for 3D is the durability factor. What I use to put those inserts in is this AAE Max Impact. It's like this black insert adhesive. I've found that it works really good. I hear a lot of people complaining about inserts coming out on their setups, on their arrow setups, and I've had inserts come out before using other stuff, or when I've had bow shops put my arrows together or whatever. But since I've started building my own, this was the first kind that I ever bought, and I haven't ever had an insert come out. since I've started building my own arrows, and so I just keep rolling with it. Works good. What I'm using on my vanes is this AAE Max Bond. I know I'm using a lot of AAE stuff here. That's just kind of, you know, I buy the AAE glue because they market it as being best for these AAE vanes. So maybe it doesn't really matter, but I've bought into it, so that's what I get, and it works good. I don't have vanes come off ever, so I just keep using that same stuff. I really like these hybrid vanes. I didn't go into that very much. I'm trying to make this a little bit more of a detailed video than we've made here recently. Just to give you kind of an idea of why I'm doing the stuff I'm doing and a little information about the things that I'm using. But I didn't really get into these hybrid vanes, why I'm using them. I really like these AAE. The Max Stealths are really nice too. The hybrids are almost, this is the hybrid 2.0, but the hybrid 26s, I think they are, is basically the same thing as the Max Stealth, but it's made out of the hybrid plastic, which I'm not sure exactly what the difference is as far as, I mean, what they put in it or whatever, but I like these vanes because they're very quiet. They're soft and they take their, I've used some TAC vanes and stuff in the past, and TAC vanes are great because they're quiet because of how firm they are. They're almost like a guitar pick kind of firmness, but when those TAC vanes get wadded up, you shoot through a target or something like that, or leave them out in the hot truck or something like that, and they get a little bit warped. They kind of stick that way. These softer plastic AE hybrid or Max Stealth, either one, take their form back really quickly without having to be heated up in boiling water or nothing like that. So that's something I really like about them. They're softer, but they're not floppy, if that makes any sense to you. So I've seen some testing on noise from different vanes, and these AAE hybrids and Max Stealths have been some of the best performing on noise. And the reason that I'm using the hybrid instead of just the regular Max Stealth is because it eliminates one step. On these hybrids, you don't need to use a primer pen, which isn't that big of a deal. I don't mind using the primer pen, but if I can avoid having to keep buying primer pens and avoid having to go through that other step of the arrow building process, I'm going to do that. Now, if they didn't hold up as well or something like that, then I probably wouldn't continue to do it. But I haven't noticed any difference as far as durability or anything like that between these and the Max Stealth. So that's why I use these vanes, and I've really liked them a lot. I put on my Bitzenberger, I've kind of shaved the ends off with a grinder, because they tend to, I think this end I left normal, but this end I shaved off a little bit because it would tend to catch somewhere. I can't remember where it was catching, but it was catching on something, so I kind of shaved the end off but I think I left this end alone. So anyway, I'm on the third little tick right there is where I put my vanes, and that puts it about an inch away from the end of the carbon. So, not talking so much. I know I've been talking a lot. Oops. We're going to start building this thing. I usually just put about 6 or 7 little dots, little tiny, and then I kind of take that little nozzle and kind of spread it out across the vane. Pop it on there, push it all the way up against the end of that jig, and I'm going to hold it for about 15 seconds. Okay, and then we'll go on to the next one. Same thing. I try not to use a ton of extra glue just to keep from making a mess. And the amount of glue that I use seems to work great for holding those veins on there. Like I said, I don't ever have them come off. Um, Everything's been working really good with this setup. Uh, so I just stick with it. One more vein. Like I said, we're just doing 3 fletch on these. We don't need quite the steering that we need on a hunting setup with broadheads. So for one, oh, I didn't mention the other reason that I use three fletch. For one, it's not that big of a deal. A lot of people like to use a 4 fletch. They look cool. It's everybody else is kind of doing it, and I got no problems with that. Um, and I don't, even on the field points, if that's what you want to do, great, do the 4 fletch. You also get a little better sight clearance if you're running a not quite as light of an arrow as I am, and your scope housing interferes a little bit with the arrow. That instead of having a 3 fletch with that cock vein sticking right straight up and interfering with your sight housing, with your scope housing, you could run a 4 fletch, and it would kind of turn it to where it was like that, coming under that sight, so it gives you a little bit better clearance. So that's one reason you could do a 4 fletch. I do the 3 fletch because, like I said, I feel like it takes a little bit less, makes a little bit less drag on the arrow. So maybe might positively affect your speed a little bit. And the other reason is just to save fletchings. I mean, I don't need that kind of steering on a field point. So I can save some fletchings that way. Fletch more arrows with one package. And then once I get all those on there, you're going to have a little bit that ooze out the side. I just take a Q-tip or whatever you might have and kind of wipe that away. A little fuzz on there, that off there. And then I always tip and tail my arrows, which means I'm going to put a little tiny dot right here on the back of each arrow and on the front. And the front looks like it kind of oozed out already, so it's already kind of there. So I'm going to leave that alone. And that is it for the building portion of it. And then I've got a field point. These are the field points I use. These are the Sever titanium. I think they're titanium, either titanium or tungsten. I think it's titanium though. These are really good field points that I've been really happy with. They're stronger than anything else you can get. I use stainless steel field points sometimes, field points sometimes too. But the tips will get bent on them if you hit. There's some targets have some metal in them, or if you miss the target and hit a rock or something, it might bend the end of that point. And these titanium ones do not do that. Like I said, these are Sever. I think you get 3 of them for $5, so you can get a whole dozen of them for about $20, which isn't too bad. It's a little much for field points, but I think it's worth it. I like all this really high strength metal on the front of between the titanium field point and the stainless steel half out. That's a lot of really high strength metal on the front of my arrow, so I feel like that's protecting my arrow better than just aluminum and softer steel. So that's my whole build right there. We'll get a weight on it. And then I think we'll be done for the time being. All right. That is 387.4 grains. That's a really good speed, I think, or a really good weight, I think, to get some good speed. This is the first time I've ever shot anything this light. Last year at TAC, I shot Rip TKOs, and I think I had a 100 grain field point in there, and they were about 430, 440 grains, which was good too. I just decided I was going to experiment with something a little bit lighter, a little bit flatter trajectory this year. Um, See if I noticed any difference. I like these arrows. They're a little bit cheaper than Rip TKOs too. So again, that's a Rip XV, which is for extreme velocity. Let's see. Anything else I need to go over? These are also 100 grain field point on this. 387 grains, and they fly straight. My groups are getting better. I've been kind of wasn't shooting that much for a little while there because I've been having some shoulder issues and stuff, but I think a lot of that's kind of cleared up, and I've been shooting a little bit more. My groups are getting a lot better. I haven't really compared my groups with these with the ones with my hunting arrows, so I couldn't tell you how big of a difference there actually is, but I don't know. In my head, I would think that the lighter arrows are going to fly straighter and less, they're going to be flatter trajectory, so less time for them to move around and they hurry up and get the target. So that's basically where I'm at. Anyway, you guys stay tuned. We got more videos coming up. We got bow reviews we're going to be doing. All of us are going to be doing bow reviews, I think, on our setups. We've all got multiple bows, I think, but we'll probably just do reviews on the ones that we are using for this coming season, and more to come on that. So thanks for tuning in today. Like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed our content. Comment if you have anything to say, or if you liked what you saw, or if you have any questions on the information I gave, or any corrections for something that I may have given wrong information on. So appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good day.